Welcome into episode 500 of the Skate Podcast. I'm Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. How about that? 500.
How did you guys celebrate? We weren't together this weekend.
No.
But I'll just tell you guys, I did 500 shots while I was in Montreal to celebrate. So.
Come on.
I did that at a wedding, so it was like we were all together. Brian, how many shots did you take?
Unfortunately, I none, but I celebrated it just by putting my feet up and watching some great hockey. And Scott was obviously there in person, which was, I'm sure, a nice experience. How was it having to have the beer tower without Bridget going halvesies with you?
Well, I think I would have been fine, but doing it after the 500 shots was really tough. That was I think that really put me over the top.
Of course. Now, I saw your Instagram story. There was you were at that pub afterwards that I think is like a Bruins Grumpy's.
Stop by Grumpy's. Yeah, friends of the pod, Ram and Coco. So shout out to them. Yeah, always a good time there. Was at another bar the night before that's kind of like within that same group of people. Yeah, it was good. I had Dunn's famous smoked meat for lunch Saturday. Let's see what else. I got my Tim Hortons
poutine.
Sunday. Yep, got poutine Friday night. So yeah, did all the Montreal tourist must.
Now, Scott, that recommendation you gave me, I think it was two years ago now. I think it was September. No, you know what? No, sorry, it was September of last year. But the poutine recommendation you gave me when I went to Quebec City, St. Jean's snack bar, St. Jean's.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, out of this world, I guess is an accurate description, but even that didn't really do it justice. How would you describe some of the better poutine you've had in Montreal compared to snack bar St. Jean?
So I had one that was like a brisket poutine, and that was freaking incredible.
Yeah, so I haven't done as much poutine focused exploring in Montreal. It's been more just like because usually I stay right near the Bell Center, so usually anywhere I go out is like right around there. I do know there's places around the city that probably have better claims to being the best in the city that I've not checked out. This time I went to Ye Old Orchard Pub. As far as I know, nothing to do with Old Orchard, Maine, but it was right across from my hotel. And that was good. That was good poutine. I'll give that a solid B+.
All right. Well, we have a lot to get into today. We have the Bruins have played 20 games, so they're with an 82 game schedule. I don't think there's a specific game that they could have where it's officially 25% way through, but games 20, 21 is kind of the time to do it. So there's metrics we want to go over regarding that, where they stand through a quarter of the season for them. Obviously, there was the game in Montreal, and yes, as I said, obviously off the top, it's episode 500 now. The three of us, our first episode together was number 42, which I want to say was back in the spring of 21. So Matt Kalman, Ken Laird, they started the Skate Podcast. You've heard us talk about that in the past. If you haven't or didn't know that was the case, and we ended up taking it over, like I said, at episode 42, and here we are now, and it's now episode 500, and just wanted to quickly say thank you to everybody who listens, supports, interacts with us on YouTube, Twitter, email. Obviously, we love doing this. It's Talking Bruins is a blast, but you guys are just as much a part of the show as we are, and we really appreciate all the listenership.
Yeah, I echo all that. It's great hearing from people. And I think in that spirit, I didn't actually mention this to you guys beforehand, but next week the schedule lines up that I think there's a good window in there for us to maybe do a mailbag right before Thanksgiving. So if people have questions, you start sending them in this week, and we'll start collecting some.
Yes, it has been an honor and a privilege to serve along you guys for 4 years now, right? Something like that. I knew Brian before. I don't think I would have met Scott. I don't know if I would have met Scott. Like, I guess I would have met you eventually once I started covering the games, but like I I hadn't met Scott at that point. And he probably wishes it stayed that way, but
now, it's been tough. I mean, really, to endure these 4 years. No, obviously I'm kidding, but
yeah, it's a good point, Bridget, because it was the same for me too. I at the time, I had only written for free EI for a matter of months during that 21 season, and I only knew Scott via email, just sending him the articles, and he would do his editing and stuff. So you and I knew each other in person, dating back to 2019 when I first started there. But we both, a little peek behind the curtain. If you can somehow find the archives of our first episode together, that was Bridget and mine's first time meeting Scott in person. But
we didn't know what to think of you, Scott. We were like, I don't know how this is gonna go. This guy, when I was like, we'll see. Not sure if he could be part of the gang, but
well, and it's weird because like I had been at EI for 7 or 8 years at that point, but obviously like we just had completely different roles. Where like to that point, everything I was doing was just website stuff. I really hadn't ventured at all into anything on air, podcast, certainly not producing. But you guys had the producing background and had been more like literally in studio, which I certainly was not. So
Ryan and I were Red Sox producers.
Yeah. Which like I had even less like I knew the producers of the shows, obviously, because I would interact with them on, more of a daily basis. But Red Sox games, I was out of the office by that point. So
yeah, I mean, those 4-hour rain delays, what made me want to give up on life. They were just so bad. They were so bad. I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, no, I gotta change this. I can't. Red Sox producing, Brian knows, was a grind. You're there till 2 a.m. sometimes because rain delays and that last year I did it was the year that it felt like every single game it rained. So I was like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that year in particular, I was doing the Red Sox producing when there were no fans. It was post pandemic, I guess, stage one. This is when sports came back the following year. So it was like the shortened season. There were no fans. So I would just be producing Red Sox games, but watching hot NHL games on the TVs in the Red Sox studio. And there were definitely times where, I'm watching NHL and I hear Joe Castig's voice or Will Fleming like throwing it to break. Oh shit! I gotta get us in the break here.
My first game I ever covered for WEI as a Bruins reporter was the beginning of that season that started out with no fans. And so when I started, it was really weird. Like there was nobody there besides Scott and I were like one of like 50 people in the building that weren't players. It felt like, so, I felt privileged in that I actually got to go to the games, but also like, it was one of those moments where I was like, this is a ghost town. Like, and then as soon as the fans came back, like it was when everything started to go back to normal. It was like such a huge relief. But it's kind of a weird time to start reporting on a team when you couldn't go in the locker rooms. Everything was over Zoom. My computer never worked. Like I could never like effectively get in a question on Zoom. Everyone was just like, nope, you're muted. Nope, no. It was just a weird time.
Like, thank God we are so past that. I hated everything about that. Like, you're right. It was like reporters would have issues with their Zooms, or the team side would have some sort of issue, and it was like it was just miserable. Like it was better than nothing, obviously, and everyone's just making do with what they could. But hopefully we never have to go back to anything like that.
I remember during that time, Scott gave me like access to the Zoom link to ask questions afterwards. It was the Bruins Islanders series, and I remember I asked one question, and looking back now, it's actually kind of funny. But reporters usually ask like boilerplate, pretty simple questions. Sometimes a little bit more meat behind it, but they're usually like within they're like 10-second questions. And I just went on and Bergeron was the player, and I went on and asked this like wicked analytical question about the power play, and and I think my question was like 45 seconds, and this speaks to Patrice Bergeron's professionalism. He was very nice about it. Like he actually gave a very thoughtful answer. But I remember I was asking about the difference between McAvoy as a right shot at the top of the umbrella on the power play versus Matt Grzelcyk as a left shot, and like the differences that has in the power play. And I could just picture it now, all the beat reporters on Zoom being like, who the fuck is this kid? And then Bergeron just like,
here's the thing. Us reporters and Bruins players, Bergeron included, have plenty of training in that respect, because I love the guy, but Mick Colaggio, no one will ever ask a longer question than him. So your 45 seconds, that was quick. Like Mick Colaggio, you'll get like a 3-minute question. Again, a legend. I love him, but and he knows this. Long questions.
Yeah. I mean,
well, they're not even questions most of the time. They're just statements, and then he just looks at the guy, and they're like, okay, well, especially when it's pasta, he's like, can you say it again? And then we go through it again.
I mean, I at least I didn't stutter or anything like that. It was like I said, it was a thoughtful question. It wasn't that bad. It was a good. Honestly, I was like, maybe he appreciates it because it's not a typical thing that he gets. But I just remember being very confused because my entire life growing up watching the Bruins, like you're at home, whatever. But I remember being at my apartment and then like putting my hand up on Zoom and then somebody saying like, you whatever, Brian EEI. And I'm like watching Bergeron on Zoom in my apartment. And I'm like, hey, am I asking him a question? I'm so, it was so surreal that like, not because I was talking to a Bruins player, but because of like the dynamic of like where the world was at that point. I'm like, wait, what's going on right now? Like, I don't know. It was a weird time, but
I thought it was weird when you asked him, when you said, hey, Patrice, I want to ask you about this 18-year-old named Marat who's playing in Russia that I've been watching.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the time or place, was it? But hey, I had to take my shot there. Oh gosh. Anyway, that's stroll down memory lane. Let's get into the opening shifts though. Who wants to go first, Bridget or Scott?
I'll go first and start with the big negatives to come out of Saturday night, which lots of positives that we're going to get to, but the one lingering question is, or two lingering questions, but the biggest one is about Charlie McAvoy, who pretty gruesome scene, took a slap shot right to the mouth. Looked like took a slight deflection off Mark Kastelik and rose up, and really nothing he could have done to brace himself. The slow-mo replays, maybe people have seen them, maybe you haven't. You really don't need to watch it. It did not look good. The update after the game was that he was undergoing testing. They were hoping he was going to be able to fly back. Elliot Friedman later reported that he was able to fly back to Boston with the team. So that is at least encouraging, but I'm sure we'll get more of an update Monday morning at practice, or at morning skate rather, because the Bruins do play again Monday night. But as we're recording this a little after 8 a.m., no new update yet. Victor Arvidsson was also injured in this game. Left late with some sort of lower body injury. Went down the tunnel. Marcus Sturm said after the game that Arvidsson will miss some time. They weren't yet sure how much time. So again, we'll see if there's any further update there on Monday. But there are a lot of positives with this team right now. Now having won 8 of the last 9 after that big 3-2 win in Montreal. But the injury bug is definitely hitting them, and the injuries are piling up. This is now, if McAvoy's out, now you're down your top defenseman. If Arvidsson's out, you're now down 3 of your original top 6 forwards, with Elias Lindholm and Casey Middlestad already on the shelf on a week-to-week basis. So far, they've weathered it, and guys have stepped up. But if those two are going to miss extended time, and McAvoy in particular, it's going to be tough. That's going to be an uphill battle for this team.
Yeah, and just because of the way that the schedule works out, like we're recording before practice, because obviously with a game tonight, we want to do it as early as possible. But I assume in morning skate there will be there's a chance there's going to be a call up that we see if Arvidsson like. This is the weird thing about the post game talking about the injuries. Was when Sturm said he didn't know what was going on with McAvoy, but like that Arvidsson would be out. A lot of times they just like, and this is all coaches, but it's just like, don't know, update you later kind of thing. But then when he was like, oh, Arvidsson's definitely out, I was like, oh, that's probably not great if they are willing to say that as soon as they did. So you need another guy to plug into the top six. And like they already have a guy on defense that they can bring in. Like they had 7 defensemen, so next guy up, and they already have Yoki Haru. They could keep in and whatnot, but when it comes to the top 6, like, does that warrant a call up, or are you moving someone from the third line up, or what? So because that's a harder role. Not saying like McAvoy is an easy role to fill, but I'm just saying like a second line guy, you're not just taking the next guy up off the bench, like you're not taking your extra forward and putting them on the second line more than likely. So
yeah, it's worth noting that Mate Blumel and Riley Tufte did not dress for Providence Sunday night. So keep an eye on them. Nothing announced yet as far as call-ups go, but both of those guys sat out of Providence's game Sunday night. They are 2 of the top scorers down in Providence. Tufte is the Providence Bruins top scorer. You would think maybe Blumel would be more of a natural fit if they're going to throw him right onto the second line. Like you said, Bridget, they could also move guys around who are already up here. But keep an eye on those 2 names in particular. There was no one missing on defense, which was at least notable. We'll see, if that changes with a call up on defense as well.
Yeah. So we'll keep you posted on Twitter. It's not on this podcast, but check our Twitter after or around the time of morning skate. But anyway, I'll get to my opening shift, which is that something we've talked about over the course of our 500 episodes was that the rivalry between Boston and Montreal faded for quite a bit of time because the Bruins were still good, but Montreal went through, somewhat of a rebuild, and they weren't good. They haven't been a playoff team until this past season. They had missed the playoffs a few seasons in a row, and that the juice wasn't there in what has always been a really great rivalry. And now Montreal is a team that not only is back in the playoff picture, the Bruins in Montreal were fighting for first place in the division in last night's game. And up at the Bell Center, if people have been there, they know, like, it is loud in there. And they really get up for games in general, but against the Bruins even more so. And it was, first of all, it was a close game. So that always has extra interest. But you knew that, like, if it had that rivalry is back on feeling from opening puck drop when Nikita Zadorov decided to fight Struble just because like, it's a rivalry game. Let's just do it. So puck goes down. They both clearly had talked about it before because they both dropped their gloves immediately and got it going. And I could tell, like, the thing about Nikita Zadorov is he really, really wants, like, certain things. Like, he really wants to be part of an original 6 team and, like, get the whole package of it, which includes, like, the rivalry with Montreal, and he wants to experience the whole thing. And he got his moment at the beginning of the game, and then like 4 minutes later, another fight between Jeannot and Xhekaj, and it had that feel to it of a rivalry again. And I had extreme FOMO because I couldn't be there for a wedding, but Scott was there. So I'm going to ask you, Scott, what was it like, the atmosphere there with the fight to start, and then, fans going going crazy for that, I'm sure, and then it being a close game. And what was it like there?
Yeah, it was awesome. It's a great place to watch a game. It's a great building, great crowd, great energy. Like even those years you mentioned where the Canadians weren't very good, it was still a great crowd for Bruins games. And and a lot of Bruins fans make the trip up there, so you get their cheering mixed in when the Bruins score. But yeah, with it, this definitely felt like it had extra juice because, like you said, it was two teams battling for first. And yes, it's early in the season, and yes, there are probably fair questions about both these teams and how well they're going to hold up over the course of an entire regular season. But for now, like they're off to good starts. They'd both been playing pretty well, although the Canadians had just had a really bad loss on home ice the game before to Dallas. But yeah, you just feel it, like even just around the city. Like there was just that area around the Bell Center was, pretty electric. Like most of the day, Friday night, the night before, you went out Friday night, you saw Bruins fans who were already up there. And then yeah, the crowd at the game was great. And
wasn't there like a nice little like flurry of snow that like added to the whole like
so it started snowing. By the time I left the rink at like 11:30, it was starting to snow, and they got I think like probably a couple inches overnight. They'd gotten some snow early in the week too, so yeah, winter has started up in Montreal. But yeah, it was just an awesome environment. And like I said, like you could hear the Bruins fans too. There were plenty of them that had made the trek up there.
The brave ones that wore Bruins jerseys into the building that they would pan to occasionally during the broadcast. But what's crazy, and this will lead into Brian's opening shift, and it's not the case this morning because Detroit won, but at the time, Saturday of the game, Montreal was in first place in the division. The Bruins were in second place. And with the win, the Bruins jumped them into first. And I don't think anyone had at the beginning of the season that at that point, Saturday, the top two teams in the Atlantic were going to be Boston and Montreal, just by, where they physically are in the standings. Obviously, points percentage is a little bit different, but I don't think anyone thought they were going to pull up the NHL standings and see that in front of them. And like I said, since then, Detroit is now second, but the Bruins are still in first. So I guess, Brian, I know your opening shift is let's just check in on them a quarter of the way through the season. Did you think that's where they would be?
No, I did not. I definitely did not. I don't even think the most opportunistic Bruins fans maybe a couple may have thought that, but I certainly did not. But just before I get into that, just to kind of add to the rivalry situation with the Bruins and the Canadiens and why it got to where it got to the last decade, and hopefully we're going into a reignition of it, is that, Bridget, you mentioned the teams were going in opposite directions for the longest time. And so because of that, not only was Montreal not good, although Canadiens fans will probably be quick to mention their Canadian division Stanley Cup run in 2021, although that was just a very, very fluky situation. And honestly, that season kind of didn't even happen in my mind.
But, yeah, and came during a season where the Bruins and Canadiens never played,
right?
Because of the way the NHL realigned that year. So it's like, especially from the Bruins perspective, it's like that really feels like it never happened, because it's like we literally never saw the Canadiens that season.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Eastern Conference Canadiens with a Western Conference championship win over, was it Vegas? Who did they play? But anyway,
that was Tampa.
No,
Tampa's.
No, that was the Stanley Cup Finals. But like they were in the West Finals, right, against Vegas or something like that.
Well, they were in the.
There was no East West, but yeah, they're in the final.
So what did they call the conference champions that year?
I think they just called it the NHL semifinals.
Oh, all right.
Clearly, we've all forgotten. We've all
that's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. But over the last decade, since the Bruins last played the Canadiens in the playoffs in the spring of 2014, the Bruins have had their own rivalries kick up with other teams too, coinciding with Montreal's rebuild. So it's like you've played Toronto in the playoffs 3 times in the last, decade plus. You've played the Carolina Hurricanes 3 times in the playoffs in the last decade. You've played Tampa twice, Florida twice. So you combine all that with not playing Montreal in the playoffs, playing them minimally in the regular season. In fact, there was a stretch due to COVID-19 canceling the remainder of the 2019-2020 season, and then the divisional realignments next year with that Canadian division you guys mentioned. There was nearly a 2-year calendar stretch from February 12th of 2020 to November 14th of 2021 where the Bruins and Canadiens didn't play each other. So all these factors contributed to the rivalry cooling off. But what's interesting, guys, is that the longest playoff drought between the Bruins and the Canadiens head-to-head is 12 years, from 1931 to 1943. Right now, their playoff head-to-head drought is at 11 years. And I made a comment over the summer about that and said, well, I'm pretty sure that they're gonna meet that or exceed it, because I don't see the Bruins or Canadiens playing in the playoffs anytime soon. But here we are now, and it's like, fuck, maybe they do meet in the playoffs at some point this year and can keep the 1931 to 1943 drought in the history books as the longest one. Obviously, there's still a good chance that they meet or exceed that drought, but all these things just show it's been a dry spell for the rivalry, and hopefully this is a kickstart of a new wave of it, which would be great. So with that said, Bridget, yes, you mentioned the quarter way through the season, and I just want to give a couple of team metrics, and you guys can comment on it. And I also wanted to go over later in the episode just some point paces, individual point paces for Bruins players. But right now, I'll keep it to the team, some of the main team metrics through 20 games. The Bruins, as of 20 hours ago when I did this, so forgive me if some of this is slightly adjusted now, but as of yesterday morning, they were 6th in the NHL in points with 24. They were 14th in points percentage at 600. They had 68 goals, which was 2nd in the NHL, 66 against, which is 27th, plus 2 goal differential, which is 14th in the NHL. Goals per game scored 3.35, 5th in the NHL. Goals against per game, 3.3, which is 9th in the NHL. Power play percentage, 25.4%, 6th in the NHL. Last year, they finished the season at 15.2% and 29th in the NHL. And the penalty killing percentage is at 82.1, which is 11th in the NHL. Bridget and Scott, when I look at those numbers, the goals against to me is a little bit more inflated because there was 2 games in October they gave up 7. There was 1 game they gave up 6. Not that those games don't count, but that was before they turned the corner defensively. Whereas offensively, they've been consistently scoring all year. So there's that note. But also, you look at their special teams. They are, if you're in or near top 10 in both special teams categories, I'd be hard pressed to find a team that does that and doesn't make playoffs. So there's a long way to go. But to me, the special teams numbers just jumped out to me.
Yeah, the offense in general. So the power play being so much better, like going from bottom 5 in the league last year to top 5, like crazy jump, crazy improvement. Obviously, a lot of credit to Steve Spott coming in and running it. And then that helping to bring up the overall offensive numbers. It was just so hard for this team to score goals last year, even with Pastrnak and Geekie doing their thing. There was just nothing behind them. It wasn't happening on the power play. And now you have depth scoring. You have other guys stepping up every game. Now, again, that depth is starting to take a hit with some injuries, but you've had contributions from the back end. Charlie McAvoy was putting up points. Mason Lohrei, when he's been in, is putting up points. He scores another goal in this, or scores a goal in this game Saturday. So he now has 4 points in 4 games since coming back into the lineup. And yeah, the power play just makes such a big difference. Like, 5-on-5 scoring is one thing, and that they are better there. Like I said, they're getting more depth. They're playing in a way that allows them to get more opportunities. Although I would still like, there's still room for improvement in terms of generating 5-on-5 for sure. But that power play just makes such a difference. Like when you don't have it, it is just so noticeable the way that it kills your momentum, kills energy. And now this year, yeah, the numbers, the 25%, that's great. That puts you, what do you say, fifth in the NHL? But also like a lot of times, even when they're not scoring, you hear this from coaches all the time. You got to at least build momentum, at least raise the energy level. They're doing that. Like they're getting chances on the power play pretty consistently. Not saying every power play looks great. Like, sure, there's still some that look bad, and they gave up a shorthanded goal Saturday night. So, like, yeah, that's an issue, of course. But they're getting chances on this. Like, you saw, to quickly just touch on penalty kill, like you saw Montreal's power play be a momentum killer Saturday night. Like, huge credit to the Bruins penalty kill. McAvoy had some big blocks, including the one with his face, unfortunately. Pavel Zacha had some big plays. Sean Corrali played nearly 7 minutes of penalty kill time. Swayman had some big saves on the PK. But Montreal's power play also just looked so passive. Like, I don't know what was going on. They have 2 extended 5-on-3s, and I think they landed 2 total shots on goal on the 5-on-3s. Like, it was pretty baffling to watch. Lane Hudson had like a walk right down Main Street and passed out of it over to someone on the half wall and put the pass behind him. And it's like, it was honestly like bizarre to watch how hesitant Montreal was to shoot. And you could feel it in the building. Like that was deflating. And that's what the Bruins power play was doing last year, where it's like, not only are you not scoring, but you're just killing momentum.
They're trying to be too cute as well. Like, I think when you have Lane Hudson and Demidoff and Caulfield, like they have so much high-end offensive skill. And sometimes when players possess so much offensive skill, they get too cute. They overthink. They want the perfect play. And I'm not saying that the Bruins are void of that. Like, every team does it. These players are so skilled. They all are guilty of it at times. But yeah, that Montreal power play, multiple extended 5-on-3s. I thought for sure that they were going to bury, certainly on the first one. Then on the second one, when they had the second 5-on-3, I'm like, okay, maybe there's a little bit of doubt in their mind. But yeah, Scott, you're exactly right, and it speaks to the power of special teams. And I commented online yesterday. I posted a video of the Bruins power play goal, and you see Pavel Zacha in the slot, Victor Arvidsson in front of the net. Lindholm at the top of the umbrella, Hampus Lindholm obviously, moves it to Pastrnak on his strong side half wall. The second, and I mean the second, that puck is en route to Pastrnak, right before it hits his blade, Zacha is already in motion to the far left post down by the goal line, and Arvidsson has crept up to the bumper slot. And it's subtle. It's not rocket science, but it's that movement without the puck, that purposeful movement and positioning without the puck to set up the next play before the puck gets to the carrier. That's the name of the game. And credit to Steve Spott, because again, as I said, I don't know why it was so hard to implement last year. It's not rocket science, but for whatever reason, the Bruins coaching staff didn't implement it, or the players couldn't execute what I don't know what the hell the problem was, but the Bruins entries this year are a major improvement. But their offensive zone decision making and positioning without the puck has been a major reason as to why that they've had success as well to this point. And it's great to see. It's just fundamental hockey. It's nothing crazy. No, there's going to be no Nobel Prize going to Steve Spott for the power play this year. But like, for whatever reason, he's been successful at implementing, and last year they weren't. So props to him.
Well, like Scott said, it's about building momentum even if you don't score, but it's also about building confidence when you do score. And because they have been scoring more on their power play than they did last year, it just looks like they move the puck with more confidence, and it's a snowball effect, right? I think when they got in a hole last year, when they knew the power play was failing them, it just got more and more in their head, and then they were overthinking, and now you kind of watch them. It doesn't feel like they're overthinking. They're just acting. They're just doing, and it's resulting in them scoring more on the power play. And we talked about, is it a personnel problem versus a systems problem? And their power play, their top unit of their power play has stayed largely the same. When Elias Lindholm was healthy, it was pretty much the same as it was last year. It was all guys that were on the team last year. Now Arvidsson's up on the top unit out of necessity with Elias Lindholm out, and he's the guy who scores. He scores in this game, but it felt like the system or just the approach was the issue. Because think about it, you have David Pastrnak on your power play. That alone should have meant more, that alone should help you more. But the puck, when the movement wasn't there, he was easier to cover, right? Like, think about how often they took opposing penalty kills, took away the Pastrnak option, and then you got to figure out what else to do, and they just couldn't. So it seems like it was more of a systems problem than a personnel problem, because especially with the top unit, it stayed largely the same as last year.
Yeah, and I think one of the best things they've done is using Pastrnak more on his strong side and getting him downhill, coming through the right circle, because he's still a threat to shoot when he does that, but he's also such a great passer that now the PK has to watch for the bumper, they have to watch for the geeky one-timer, or in this game, it was even Arvidsson over at the left dot a couple times for a one-timer. So they're just creating more options. Whereas, yeah, it felt like there was like almost like a year straight where they just kind of kept banging their head against the wall of Pasternak's in the left circle, gonna try to set up the one-timer. And yet, like, PKs were basically cheating over to take that away. And they either didn't have another good enough scoring option, or B, were just too stubborn to try something different. It's like they would very occasionally put Pastrnak on a strong side.
Yeah.
But then they'd go right back and try to get back to Pastrnak one-timer. And now it just looks like there's so many more options for them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how many times last year did we comment on how stationary their power play was, because you had Pastrnak on his offside for the one-timer, where everybody knew it was going there. And then you had, God bless you, Bridget. And then you had Marchand, who was on his offside. And it's like, well, Brad Marchand's not a one-time threat. He's somebody who needs to be moving. And now you have him stationary. Everything was asked backwards. But the other thing, too, is, and Morgan Geeky's been on this roster for a couple of years now, but there's a difference when somebody's finally clicked and emerged, right? He's a different player now than he was when they first got him, and certainly even at the beginning of last year. The fact that the Bruins have two elite shots, two elite releases on either flank is massive. Not every power play has that. Very few do. In fact, I don't know if any power play in the league has two shots on either elbow like Pastrnak and like Geeky's. The fact that David Pastrnak isn't the go-to one-time option on the power play speaks to the emergence of Morgan Geeky. Of course, Pastrnak is the better one-time player, but they have enough trust in Geeky in that spot where they can now move Pastrnak to his strong side. And they still move him around too. Like, that's the beauty of it. He's not solely on his strong side. Like, they do mix things around, but that's what you want. Guys, I wanted to comment on something, and forgive me for forgetting the player's name, but you bring up McAvoy. And here's the thing that sucks about the McAvoy injury and Arvidsson. Arvidsson was playing fantastic hockey. I was wrong about him. He's already shown me more than I thought he would show me the entire season. So I will wear that one. I'm happy I was wrong about that. He has played great hockey. McAvoy also has been playing some of the best hockey that I've seen him play over the last few seasons. So hopefully, his first and foremost, non-hockey related, we hope he's healthy and okay and recovering soon. But on the ice, you hope he can get back to the ice as well, because he's been very, very good. Very good. But the part that pissed me off was the Bruins had already killed off 2 5-on-3s in that game. They just finished killing off a near entire 2-minute 5-on-3. Hampus Lindholm gets called for interference. Now, I want to say this really quickly. I don't know what Lindholm was doing. There was no need for contact there. The puck was way gone. But and as I said, forgive me, I don't remember who the Montreal Canadiens player was.
It was Bolduc, Zach Bolduc.
Thank you. He flops. Talk about lacking situational awareness. The team just killed a 5. I'm talking about as the official. The team just fucking killed a 5-on-3. Their second near full 5-on-3 of the game. You don't have the feel for the game as an official to call them both there, if anything, or just let it go. And then it pisses me off.
It was embarrassing. It was completely embarrassing.
Yeah.
Totally embarrassing to fall for that flop at that point. But hey, listen. That's how you know the Bruins-Canadiens rivalry is back, right? We're talking about refs falling for flops in Montreal. This is, I feel like I'm back in 2010, 2011. Yeah, bad call. And like you said, real unfortunate because that is the kill that McAvoy ends up taking the shot to the mouth off. So
yeah, it just shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have been the situation that they were in, and you hope that he's not out too long, because if he is, it's like, that's just an official having a lot. Now, obviously, the official in that moment isn't anticipating Charlie McAvoy getting a slap shot to the jaw. I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, but it is unfortunate that that's the way that it transpired, because I don't like when I see, egregious calls or non-calls that really have an impact at the afterwards. It's unfortunate, but wanted to comment on that. And yes, Bridget, Mason Lohrei. Again, let's see what the injury timeline is to McAvoy. Assuming that the blue line is healthy at any point going forward, that's the 6 that I like. I mean, I've been, we have been commenting on Aspro, and I talked about how I wasn't trying to pin Lohrei and Aspro together. In fact, I kind of wanted Lohrei and Aspro together at the expense of Jokiharju. I thought that pair looked really good. I thought the decor looked really good. I think that they have found something with Lohrei and Aspro, but now that McAvoy might be on the shelf, things might tinker around again.
Well, yeah, you have to fill that spot, and is Lohrei the guy that goes with Zadorov? I have no idea what that pair looks like. I don't know. I wouldn't really know what to expect from that pair.
I would assume you go to Zadorov, Jokiharju, who have played more together, and that's what the Bruins went to in Toronto, 2 weekends ago when McAvoy missed a game for a family matter. So I would assume you start with that and then see how it looks and whether you need to make any tweaks from there.
Yeah, but that's not even the main point I wanted to make. It was just, the fact that he's had 4 points in the last 4 games. 3 of them were assists. 1 of them was a goal this past game in Montreal. And talking about how, because we did so many episodes talking about, how is he going to respond? How's he going to respond as he sat longer and longer as a healthy scratch? And so far, the answer through those 4 games is he's responded very well, and it seems to have worked. So that's a button pushed that results in what you wanted to see. And it does look like, I don't know if you guys have, broken down some of the details of him playing better, but it does seem like he's more willing to put the body on the line. He had a good block the other day that was like a diving block, and he's been closing on guys. It seemed like more like, I'm not saying he was lazy before, but it just seems like more intense, attacking the guys when they have the pucks, and just, I don't know, just a little extra energy from him, knowing that, he could go back out. Now, obviously, if McAvoy's out for an extended period of time, Lohrei's going to have to be in, right? There's no scratching him again if McAvoy's out, because that's just, you're already down essentially 2 defensemen that you started the year with, because Harris has also been out, and then if McAvoy's out. But yeah, hopefully that's not the case. But at the very least, Lohrei has looked better, and probably because probably some of it was because he's not on the top pair anymore, right? He's not getting the tougher of the matchups. He's been on the third pair, and it's a little bit different to be a third pair guy than it is to be out there with McAvoy. And so the balance was working. we talked about that being one of the main reasons for the win streak was how well the Zadorov-McAvoy pair was playing. So once you put them together, things started looking up, and you wonder if they have to be separated now because McAvoy is hurt. Do things kind of fall back to some of the issues we saw in the 6-game losing streak rather than during the win streak?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you're gonna have questions on the right side of your defense if McAvoy's out for any extended stretch. Like, you know, Peak has been, I would say, solid enough in a second pairing role with Lindholm. I think there's been games that he's struggled a bit and games he's looked really strong. But like now you're asking more of that pairing. Yoki Haru gets healthy scratched. We've talked about, you know, I thought he had played a little better recently, but like he's been inconsistent at times. If you're putting him with Zadorov, that's a pairing you're going to have to rely on. And yeah, and then Lohrei Aspero probably stays as your third pair, which I think is ideally what you want from them. Like, I don't know that you can really ask or expect too much more from Aspero than what you've gotten. You don't want to thrust Lohrei back into a bigger role, as you said, Bridget. Like, he's come back in, and I think part of the reason you're seeing some success is that they have lightened the load a bit on him and lightened the ask of what he's being tasked with. You know, so now, like, if all of a sudden you have to bump him back up to 19 minutes, like, okay, well, you're probably gonna, and he's getting tougher matchups, you're probably gonna see him struggle a little bit again. You know, like, yeah, since he's come back in, I agree, like, the offense is obvious. I do think he's been better in his own zone. In these 4 games, he's only been on the ice for 1 goal against, so you like that. But again, it's been in a bit of a sheltered role. So now let's see if he is asked here for however long McAvoy is out to take on a more of a non-sheltered role, because that'll be the real test of, like, all right, how much have you learned? Like, how much are you ready to step up and take on more? Because someone's going to have to here.
Yeah, but I mean, he wasn't scratched because of his offensive game. We all know that. And so him coming back into the lineup and continuing to perform offensively, it's great, right? You need that from him. But it's been the other areas that I've liked to see from him. Like you mentioned it, Bridget. I think he's been competing harder defensively. I think he's been harder on pucks. He's been more simplified in the defensive zone. And so, like, that's exactly what you want to see from him. And to be honest, guys, I understand the difference in a matchup between a top matchup against somebody's first line and their third line, whatever. But at the end of the day, NHL forwards, they all compete very hard, and in some cases, bottom lineup forwards compete harder than compete harder on pucks than some of the more skilled guys because they have to. Otherwise, what good are they? So the fact that Lohrei is being defensively sound against third liners, fourth liners, primarily from the other team, in some ways, in some regards, I find just as impressive than him playing against top pair guys, like or top line forwards in a different way. You understand what I'm saying from a competitive standpoint? So it's been great to see that from him, and yeah. So hopefully he keeps it going. Before we sign out, guys, I just want to mention, because I teased it earlier, some point paces real quick, individual point paces, and if you guys have any comments on that. So I'm just gonna pull it up real quick. Unfortunately I have.
Well, I'll fill some time here because one thing statistically I wanted to touch on before we get out of here. We've talked before about goals saved above expected as, you know, kind of a go-to goalie stat. Jeremy Swayman is up to 4th in the NHL in goals saved above expected, according to Money Puck. 9.5 goals saved above expected on the season, tied with Igor Shesterkin. The only goalies ahead of him are Spencer Knight in Chicago, who's been off to a great start, Logan Thompson in Washington, and Connor Hellebuck with Winnipeg. So
he's been good.
He's been playing a lot better recently. I think he's now got an individual 5-game winning streak. So, came up with some huge saves in that Montreal game down the stretch on all those penalty kills. So, definitely wanted to make sure we at least quickly hit on Swayman.
Definitely. So I did this based on how many games obviously each player has played and how many games that they have remaining, right? So if a player's missed 5 or 6 games, then we all know it's not an 82 game sample because it can't be, right? So you do account for that delta, but I also excluded players who haven't played in at least half of Boston's games so far. So anybody with less than 10 games played is just too small of a sample size, and their consistency in the lineup is too much of a question to really pull out a full projection for them. So David Pastrnak on pace for 107 points. Morgan Geekie, 74. Pavel Zacha, 66. Charlie McAvoy is on pace for 60. We'll see how much time he misses, if any. Mason Lohrei on pace for 51 points. That includes his 5 scratches. Victor Arvidsson, now injured. We'll see how long he's out for, but he was on pace after Montreal's game for 40 points. Elias Lindholm has missed 7 games and counting, on pace for 52 if he were to be back in the lineup next game. Casey Middlestat, same parameters, on pace for 46 points. He's missed 5 games and counting. Michael Eyssimont, 37 points. Jeannot, 37. Kaslik, 33. Husadinov, 31, but he's been scratched 5 games, which that includes, but also he's got a bit of a different role now than he had for much of the season. So take that for what it's worth. Hampus Lindholm missed 8 games, on pace for 29 points. Fraser Minton, 25 points. Sean Corrali, 21. Zdorov, 21. Peak, 19. Yoki Haru, 13. So the guy at the top of that list is not surprising, right? From there, though, guys, who stands out to you?
So a couple really stand out for me. Morgan Geekie in the 70s. If he's around 70 points, you are absolutely thrilled. Zacha back in the 60-point conversation. I think we said going into the season, like, that's where he was the previous 2 years, high 50s. Last year dipped down. If he's back in that range or even setting a career high, huge. McAvoy and Lohrei from the points, on defense, you didn't have a 50-point guy on defense last year. So if you have 1 or 2, in that range, again, depending on health or whether Lohrei gets scratched again at some point, that's huge. So that I have a few more thoughts lower down, but those were the ones that immediately jump out.
Yeah, and the lower down guys too, those are higher numbers than you would expect based on past the past seasons, because you said Jeannot was 30 what? 30 how many
30,
points,
37, I believe.
37. Okay, so look at
what his career high is 41.
Yeah, but that wasn't even in the last few seasons. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons ago.
No, yeah, so, I say that to say that's what everybody was saying, he won't get back to that. And it's 20 games, he still may not, but yeah, that's that to your point, Bridget. Yeah.
I mean, Jeannot
last year was
Jeannot, Eyssimont, and Kaslik all on pace for 30, in the 30s in points. I'd say that's a win across the board. Going into the year, I would not have had any of those guys topping 30 points. Maybe not even topping 20 to 25.
Yeah, and it was actually 5 years ago. And I'm looking he hasn't played recently. He hasn't played full seasons either, Jeannot. Last year was 67 games. The year before that, 55. The year before that, let's see, 76. So that's the closest, but that was still only 18 points when you combine what he did for Tampa and Nashville. Yeah, it's been a while since he's gotten that high. And then even Casta, what was Kaslik's numbers last year? That has to be higher than
Kaslik is on pace for 33. His career high is 14 points set last year with the Bruins.
And that's never been an issue just because that's not really been his role, but It's great if he does, double or more than that from his high. So, yeah.
Eyssimont pays for 37 points, career high 25 back in 23-24 with Tampa Bay. And that was the outlier. Every other year he's had 10 points or less in however many games he actually I shouldn't say that. I'm looking at 1 year, which was a split between Tampa and Seattle. He had 16 points. So I mean, listen, is it sustainable for all of these guys to eclipse their career highs by 15 to 25 points? Well, I don't know. You wouldn't think so, but this team has, puzzled me since the puck dropped this year. So, at a certain point, you are what the numbers say you are, and obviously 20 games is not 40 or even 60. You know what I mean? Like, they still have a long way to go, but this is why it's a point projection based on 20 games, a quarter of the way through the season. So, with that said, Bridget and Scott, any final thoughts before we sign out?
Well, we've barely mentioned Murat Husnuddinov's goal, surprisingly for this podcast, but it was funny because at morning skate Saturday up in Montreal, I asked Marco Sturm, basically, what is Husnudinov doing effectively, playing between Pastrnak and Geekie? And the first thing he mentioned is his ability to hunt pucks and get pucks back for those guys, which leads to more offensive zone time, less time defending. I had said before that line when Elias Lindholm was there spent too much time in their own zone earlier this season. And they were giving up more goals than they were scoring. They were giving up more chances than they were getting. Well, funny how it works out that that's exactly what Husnudinov does on the opening goal Saturday night is, pucks. It's a 4-on-4, so not, the full 5-on-5 line. But I think it was Zadorov kind of just dumped the puck down into the corner, which 4-on-4 you don't really want to do. That's essentially just a turnover. But I think it was Noah Dobson went back to retrieve it. Husnudinov just immediately is on him, wins it right back. And then, seconds, it's worked back to Zadorov, over to Pastrnak, seam pass to Husnudinov for the finish. And it's like, there were multiple instances of that in that game. There's been a lot of it this season. Like, he is very good at that, of knowing when to attack, the puck, when to go try to get it right back instead of giving it someone any sort of space to make a play. And it paid off with that opening goal.
Yeah, he's got that water bug. He's got that water bug in him. He's just in your face and he's coming to get you. And he also hit the crossbar square so hard in that game too. You just you could hear it. I'm sure you heard it pretty loud, Scott. He was so mad. He's on the bench just shaking his head because he knows he should have had that one. He beat Montembeault, but not the post. And you wanted to see it for him, especially on this podcast. Like you mentioned, my entire background is Kuzi at this point. So
I'm starting to question who the bigger fan of Kuzi is on this podcast, to be honest with you guys.
Don't worry, Brian. I saved you a few of these. So there is another one of these for you if you would like to make it your backdrop too.
Oh no, the old fake shoulder shake. He's you know what's funny? I actually found this video I posted last year from a practice where he was on a 3-on-2 rush with I think it was Elias Lindholm or maybe it was a 2-on-2 rush. Anyway, he made this fantastic pass to Lindholm, who just didn't make anything of it. But I made a comment on the video. I said, if that was David Pastrnak, that shot's in. And I was like, I think it could be fun to see a combination of Geekie, Husnudinov, and Pastrnak. I did say that last March. It was kind of tongue in cheek because you never think that's going to be a thing. But I thought it'd be fun to watch, and here we are, months later, and he's with them for reasons we didn't expect. But he was on that line before Lindholm got hurt. So, I mean, it's not like Husnudinov was there because they had 5 injuries. He worked his way there.
You're right. He was on left wing. Now he's, been center wing, whatever. I feel like he's our favorite because he's the biggest I told you so that we've ever had on this podcast. See, we were right about one thing. we didn't get our predictions
not
right.
Often.
Swayman wasn't a Vezina candidate, and but Brian saw something special, and we were on the Kuzi gang from the beginning, and now we look smart. So that's why we can just take a second to pat ourselves on the back.
I don't know if we look smart, Bridget, but we'll take that one and run to the bank.
It only took 500 episodes for us to get something.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Exactly.
I can't wait to see what we come up with in the next 500.
Yeah, I think our point projection is for episode 1000 is being right twice. So it's we'll be self-aware. But anyway, thank you all very much for listening. We hope to have more updates on some of the injuries around the Bruins, and obviously we'll talk about the Bruins Hurricanes game next we speak. And we'll talk to you soon. Hey guys, thanks for watching this Skate podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.